Hey everyone, this is Kira. I wanted to do a Lies of P 100% walkthrough in the year 2024, since a lot of the walkthroughs that you can find on YouTube right now were back when the game first came out, and there have been some significant changes since then. Some bosses have been nerfed. A new starter weapon was added in collaboration with Wolong that's significantly better than the other starting weapons that you used to begin the game with. And then in addition, I just wanted to make a walkthrough that was kind of beginner friendly and very thorough for people that might be new to Souls likes and Souls games in general. So let's get started.
Can you hear me? Geppetto's puppet. We need your help.
So let's start by collecting our items. We get some costumes and the Crescent Glaive, which is the really good starter weapon that I mentioned. So let's go over to equipment. So you can see we were in our bag, which shows all of our inventory, and you can filter to specific kinds of items. For example, here's the weapon. So we go over here. These are our equipment slots. You can see we have a weapon we can equip, a Legion arm. This is our left arm, which eventually we're going to have a bunch of different options for what to equip there. Necklaces, amulets, we're going to be able to equip several of those. And then the defense parts are kind of like our armor. And you have a frame, a converter, and then a cartridge, and a liner. So let's equip this weapon. And when you first start this game, you're stuck moving very, very slowly. But a little trick is you can actually hit a light attack R1 on your weapon, and that helps you move a little faster. You can also punch with your left arm, L2. That also moves you a little faster than the slow walk.
I see they got Jiminy too. But we have to hurry. My name is Sophia. Please come to Hotel Krat, and I'll explain what's happening. Jiminy, please escort him to the hotel.
So in Lies of P, you have an upper belt and a lower belt, and you can put items that you want to use on those belts. So you hit the up arrow on the D-pad to be on the upper belt, and you hit the down arrow on the D-pad to be on the lower belt. And then whichever belt you have selected, you hit the square button to use the item on that belt. If you repeatedly hit the down arrow while on the lower belt, that cycles through all of the lower belt items. So, for example, I've just cycled from the grindstone to the lamp, and now I'm going to hit square to turn the lamp on. And then the upper belt currently doesn't have any items, so there's nothing really to be done there.
Let's get you out of there. Find something that might help. But the streets are not safe. Arm yourself with one of the weapons over there. It'll be helpful on your way to the hotel.
So in Lies of P, there are essentially three options for what kind of build you want. I'm simplifying a little bit. We'll just say there are three options. If you hit triangle here, you can kind of see what the starting stats are going to be for each path. So going over these stats really quickly, vitality, raising that gives you more health. So as you level up, if you put points into vitality, you'll be able to get hit more without dying. Vigor is raising your stamina level. So when you attack with your weapon, that consumes stamina. When you sprint, that consumes stamina. When you dodge or guard, that also consumes stamina. So pretty much everything you do in this game eats stamina up. And if you're out of stamina, then it's harder for you to dodge, harder for you to block, harder for you to, continue to attack. Capacity is a stat that increases the amount of equipment you can carry. So it reduces sort of the weight or allows you to carry heavier equipment without it giving you a penalty. And in addition, the left arm, the Legion arm that I was talking about, the more capacity you have, the more you'll be able to use that Legion arm before you have to recharge it with consumables. And then the final three stats are all damage stats. So motivity is basically strength. So if you like, using giant two-handed weapons, they're really slow, sort of big bonk weapons, you would want to pick motivity. That's the path of strength. So technique is dexterity, so that's being nimble and quick. So the starter weapon, for example, is the rapier that, the attacks are very fast and don't consume a lot of stamina. So you're striking more often, but the attacks do less damage per swing. And then finally, there's a stat called Advance. Advance is what you want to play if you want to do like elemental damage. In this game, that would be electricity, fire, or acid. So if you like the idea of using special weapons that inflict those statuses and make enemies spark or catch fire or be covered in acid, that would be advanced playstyle. And I'll be talking about what weapons are good for each playstyle as we acquire them. So my recommendation here, if we switch back, is pick the balanced build if you're going to go with advance, pick dexterity if you're going to go with technique, and pick strength if you're going to go with motivity. So for this playthrough, we're going to be doing technique. I happen to really like technique because you have a lot of flexible options regarding weapons. There are handles and blades that allow you to get that big bonk feeling of strength, but then you also have the flexibility to be able to switch to weapons that attack more rapidly. But all of the builds are completely viable, so pick whatever playstyle you like. If you like the idea of advance, if you like the idea of strength, pick that. But we're going to go with technique for this playthrough.
Destination Hotel Krat. Recommend escaping from this location.
Now, what happened when we picked that path is it equipped the weaker old starter weapon from when the game originally came out. So we want to go back here and pick the glaive because this is a better weapon for us. So every weapon in Lies of P has a light attack, which is done by hitting R1, and a heavy attack, which is done by hitting R2. So the light attack is fast, and the heavy attack, you want to hold down charge and then release for maximal damage. So it's your slow attack. So fast, slow. But the great thing about this charged R2 is look at that reach. You can see how he kind of plunges forward. So you can hit enemies from really far away and surprise them, which we're going to abuse for this entire playthrough. In addition, the attacks get different if you keep hitting the button. So for example, if I hit R1 3 times, you can see it's slash, double slash, overhead slash. So when you attack in Lies of P and you commit to doing it, you press the button and you've committed to the swing. So for example, hitting R1 twice, that second R1 is a little slower, right? Because it's 2 swings. You're not going to be able to dodge roll or stop or get out of that swing. You're essentially animation locked. So you don't want to hit that button unless you know that you can get it off without getting hit by the enemy. So that's a key concept here. Is there's no interrupting. So if you press a button, you're committed to what's going to happen. Either you're going to get hit and it'll interrupt your attack, or you'll get hit and trade damage with an enemy. So you press R3 to lock onto an enemy, and when you lock on, you can see how I'm moving left and right. You stay pointed at that enemy. So this takes out the burden of having to aim. So this is the way you're going to fight almost any enemy in this game. The rare exception is if you're like, say, up on a high narrow beam or on the ledge, or running to get to an enemy that's in an awkward place and you need to be in full control of your movement, then you would want to not be locked on. But for the most part, if you're just on the ground like this, there's no way I can fall or die. you just want to lock on when doing an attack. Now, I'm going to hit most enemies with a charged R2. And the reason why I'm going to do that, I'll show it. And I followed up with an R1. Most of these enemies here will die to a charged R2 and do an R1. So if you look in the upper left, the red bar was my health. You can see that those attacks cost stamina, and that was reflected in the green bar, losing some of it, but you gain stamina back pretty fast. You can see that. And then in addition, when I killed those enemies, you can see the 3 rectangles underneath the stamina bar. You can see there's kind of a blue filling in on that first rectangle. These are your Fable slots. When you fill up these Fable slots, you can then spin them to do special attacks with your weapon. Every weapon has 2 possible Fable arts, one associated with the blade and one associated with the handle. You use the blade Fable art by hitting triangle, and you use the handle Fable art by hitting L1 and triangle. You have to have enough Fable charge in order to use that attack. So for example, if you look down in the bottom right, it shows that my Fable art on the blade costs 1 Fable charge, but my Fable art on the handle costs 3. And that's the big, really high damaging attack that we want to make sure we have ready when we hit our first elite trash mob. And the reason we prefer charged R2s is that is the best way to generate Fable charge quickly. It is faster than using R1. It is better than doing other kinds of attacks. So that's what we're going to favor doing as we go through this level. And once you have the full Fable charge and you're kind of hoarding it and waiting for the next elite enemy, you can then kill enemies however you want because you'll be at full charge. But until then, we're going to be working to gain that Fable charge. Pulse cells are how you heal in this game. And you can see that they're bound to the upper belt. So if I were to hit square now, I would actually heal. I don't need to because I haven't taken any damage. And the number next to the cells, 3, indicates how many uses we have. So you can use up to 3 pulse cells before running out. If you do run out of pulse cells, keep attacking and damaging enemies because over time you will replenish a pulse cell and then you'll get another use. So whenever you run out completely, you're going to be living cell to cell essentially, trying to get to that next pulse cell. So ideally we want to be in a situation where we're not, where we still have plenty of cells. And I'm going to, in this walkthrough, try to show you how to do things such that you take minimum amount of damage. So you can see this gross blood trail here leading to this door that we can't get through. And right in there, beating the ground, is the first elite enemy that we're going to fight. So we're going to go over here. And notice how these enemies are on the ground and take a while to get up. We can take advantage of that and do the charged R2 pretty easily. And you can see how much range this thing has, this weapon has. We can hit from pretty far away. And over time, you'll get a good feel for what that distance is so that you don't miss. If you look in the upper right, you can see that there's a number accumulating there. That's my ergo. That's essentially my experience points. When that number turns blue instead of white, it means I have enough ergo to level up. Every time you gain a level in this game, you can spend it to raise one of those stats, vitality, vigor, capacity, motivity, etc., by 1 point. I just picked up a dim ergo fragment. That's an actual consumable that I can use to gain ergo. In general, as a rule of thumb, don't ever consume these while you're just walking around a level, because if you die and can't get back to your corpse where your ergo was left and you lose all that ergo, you want to lose as little as possible. So there's no reason to give yourself extra ergo right now. So a general rule of thumb with these consumables is wait till you get to where you're right in front of the leveling up place. And when you're about to level up, only then should you spend these ergo. In general, save consumables for when you actually need them and are ready to use them. That way, it's kind of like you have banked protected ergo. If you die, that consumable is fine. So if we go up here,
The station employee has the train station keys.
Okay. Guess who has those keys? Probably that big monster puppet that we saw through the door. So guarding is how you block in this game, or parry, really. There are two kinds of guards. There's normal guarding, where you just hold down L1. You can see I'm in a defensive position. And then there's perfect guard. So guarding is just blocking. If an enemy were to hit me right now, a portion of my red health bar would become shaded a darker red. And that is called guard regain. So I've had damage done, but I am possibly able to regain that damage if I then swing and hit an enemy. So this is a really, really basic principle of Lies of P, is that you can just hold down, block, get hit, counter with a swing, and gain that health back. So if you're ever unsure about how to time a guard perfectly, that's a very, very safe thing to do. And you're going to see me doing this a lot as we progress through the game. Because it's just, basically a lot of people try to roll, or they roll at the wrong time and get hit. But in general, in this game, you don't want to be doing a lot of dodging. It's better to guard, take that damage, swing and get it back, because then you dealt damage at the same time. And it's safe. It's just a really, really safe strategy. Now, when you guard right before an attack lands, at the precise time, that's called a perfect guard. If you manage to pull that off, you'll see sparks fly out of your weapon. That's how and you'll hear a very kind of satisfying clang sound, and that's how you'll know that you did a perfect guard. And you won't take any damage at all. So guarding and perfect guarding both consume stamina, but only if you fail the perfect guard will you actually take that shaded guard regain damage. But in general, that guarding is a perfectly fine strategy if you know that you can gain that health back easily. So here, this is an enemy that fires a gun, so we're just going to run at him. And now there's an enemy down here. See how I timed that charged heavy to hit him as he was coming up? And you can see we're already nearly to 3 Fable charges. The goal is to have 3 Fable charges by the time we hit that first elite enemy. Okay, so a general rule of Souls games for people who are new to them, if you see a piece of loot out in the open like this, it's often too good to be true. We can see the blood trail. So Souls games love to ambush you. See, look at this guy. He's right there. See? So we come forward. We'll lure him out. So a sawtooth wheel is a throwing item. So that means you can throw it from range. We're going to put it on our lower belt here. It does almost no damage. It's useful for situations like sometimes there are enemies that are kind of hanging off ledges and they'll fall if you hit them. Other times there are traps you can sort of trigger to lure enemies into. So it's basically when you need to knock something down or set off a trap, that's when you use a sawtoothed wheel. But don't try to use it to damage anything. Its damage is completely non-existent. Thermite is a throwable that will do a lot of fire damage. That is a really, really good throwable. We're going to use these later in an annoying... Chapter 4 has some annoying stuff where it's good to have thermite to be able to hit enemies from range, so I would encourage you not to spend any thermite. Just hold on to it for now. If you ever come up behind an enemy, if you can get behind an enemy, you'll see your cursor change to this. See the flashing orange? That indicates that you can do a fatal attack from behind by hitting your light attack button, R1. You can see that does huge damage. It basically just instantly killed him. So that's going to be a trick, especially for fighting these humanoid enemies, and it even works on like humanoid mini-bosses. If you can get behind them, then you can pull off an R1 and do huge damage. So again, we're still using charged heavies because we're trying to get to 3 Fable charges. So here the passenger note is actually warning us about the big puppet. So here's another enemy we can hit from behind. Now we'll lure this guy out. And now you can see the game is teaching us about Fable arts because it sees that we hit 3 full Fable charges, which we only did because we were using charged R2s. If you are ever short, though, like let's say that you fought the enemy by hitting light attacks instead of heavies, and you don't quite have enough Fable charges for this next guy, you can use this consumable called a Fable Catalyst to give yourself a Fable charge. You're very likely at least at like 2 Fable charges at this point. So if you find yourself short, just use one of these, and you'll be at 3. So in general, there are shortcuts throughout these levels that you want to unlock. Usually they're designed to make a run back less painful if you die to an enemy. You know you're on the right side of a shortcut door when you see a red light like this, because that red button is what you push to unlock it. So if you ever walk up to a door and you don't see that red button, it means you're on the wrong side. So I'm just saving you some time there because you get stuck in a long animation if you try to press it on the wrong side. You can see the button turned green, and then the door unlocks. Now, the really lethal Fable art that we have on this weapon is the handle art, and we press L1 and triangle to do that art. And then we follow it up immediately with a charged R2. So what we're going to do is sprint into this enemy, hit him with the Fable art, and then immediately charged R2. And you'll see that that will be enough to put him into a state called stagger. When an enemy is staggered, you can essentially stand directly in front of them or behind them and hit them with a R1. So it's very similar to what we were doing with the ambush attacks from behind, and it'll do massive damage. So watch this. We're going to run in and do this. And there you can see the huge attack that happened. And there I used a pulse cell, so you can see what that looks like. I hit square to heal. And when we killed that guy, we got a new piece of armor, so we can equip that. We got a new frame. Now notice when I equip that in the upper right corner, it's warning me that I am now slightly heavy. So in general, that's a little bad, and we would like to not be heavy because that impacts our rolling and stamina. And the way you allow yourself to equip these heavier, items is by actually leveling up your capacity. So that's actually what we're going to do first. And note also in the bottom right, there's a bar above the weapon that is about half empty, that white bar. That is showing the weapon's durability. So as you block and fight and go throughout a level, you will actually lose durability to your weapon. And if your durability gets all the way down to 0, the weapon will actually break, and it will stay broken until you can repair it a Stargazer. So it's important to stay on top of that and make sure that you keep the weapon repaired. So before we touch that Stargazer, we're going to be able to level up at it. We're going to go ahead and use our consumables. So a neat trick for using all the consumables at once is to just, it starts off showing you, use one, but if you hit the left arrow here, that'll go wrap around and give you the maximum number of items. So we're going to repair the Stargazer.
This is called a Stargazer. A marvelous device the Stalkers used in the past.
Warning. Puppet threshold exceeds danger estimates. Please reduce puppet numbers or reset danger parameters.
As we are not strong enough to beat the puppets. But if I lend my power to this Stargazer for a moment, gather ergo, clever one. This stargazer will make you stronger, but the stargazer's strength doesn't last forever. So be careful with it. Hurry up and come to Hotel Krat.
So you can actually put items in storage to get them out of your bags. I tend to just hoard things in my bags and tend not to use the storage much, but it's there if you want to use it. So now we're going to level up. We're going to go ahead and put a few points in capacity. In general, our initial leveling goal is going to be to catch capacity and vitality up to technique. So we're going to get capacity and vitality up to 11. When you see a glowing white dot like this, it's something you can read. So you can see that dog dropped down off the cart. And notice how we're using charged R2s because our goal, again, is to get back to 3 full charges as fast as we can so that when we get to the next little elite enemy, we'll have that charge available. Now here the game actually wants you to stab him from behind with R1, but we generate more Fable Charge if we use an R2. And when you see me rolling backwards, I'm hitting circle on the controller to dodge. So in general, if you're ever kind of lowish on stamina, and you need to get out, or you're just kind of getting away from an attack that you're not quite sure how to guard against, you can just roll backwards like that. Another reason to kind of back away is when you're using these kinds of heavier weapons, you're running out of your stamina more easily. So backing out for a little bit before coming back in is how you kind of wait to let your stamina recharge enough so that you're able to keep attacking without pausing. For some of these longer documents, I'll put them up on screen and you can pause the video if you want to read them. So over here, see, this is how you can tell you're on the wrong side of a shortcut door, because there's no red light. And if you press it, you kind of get stuck in this annoyingly long animation where you see the lightning bolts and he shakes his arm. So this just saves you some time. You don't have to run up to the door if you see the light isn't there. So you see we have 3 Fable charges, so we don't really care how we attack now, so we're willing to do R1s from behind again, or light attacks in general. Stay to the right here, the dog will miss. I'm going to repair our weapon. So a lot of people actually miss this, but if you walk over here to the side, you can listen.
city is safe to traverse.
Well, that's obviously not true.
Do not be alarmed, citizens of Krat. We are effectively handling the situation with the cooperation of the workshop and the alchemists. The puppets are, naturally, imprinted with the grand covenant that prioritizes human safety above all. Please remain patient while the proper situation. Your active cooperation is requested and required. You will refrain from any unauthorized departures, assemblies, or active protests. Never forget that your safety is of the utmost importance to your city. The time for fear is over. Krat is safe. Krat is safe.
Well, it obviously isn't. We've seen that the puppets have gone crazy for some reason. So this enemy that's coming up is we're going to use our Fable art, our L1 triangle on, and the tutorial is teaching us about something called a Fury attack. So when a enemy does a Fury attack, they glow red. And your only two options are to either perfectly guard the attack, so that means blocking at the exact correct time, or just dodge it. But if you guard and the timing isn't correct, you'll take full damage. So if you're ever in doubt and unsure if you can actually parry something or pull off that perfect guard, then just roll out of the way, back up. So we can show that here. So just as with the previous enemy, we did a Fable art of L1 triangle into a charge at R2, and that was enough to stagger him, and then we just hit an R1 to finish him off. So if you come over here, you can see where we're trying to get to. So there's a gunman over here, so we're going to want to race him. And there's also this guy who comes out to ambush you. So again, we're going to use the thermite for some annoying enemies later on, so don't spend that, whatever you do, just hang on to it. So you can actually deal plunge attack by jumping off a ledge and either hitting R1 or R2. In this case, we're kind of moving to the right because if you try to plunge from the left, you'll fall in that cart and miss. So we're going to be off here to the side, and then we're going to drop down, and as we're dropping down, I'm going to hit my light attack button, R1. And you can see it just instantly killed him. And the reason I backed up there is I had run out of stamina, so I couldn't swing. So I was backing up to give my stamina a chance to recharge. If you ever need to destroy boxes or crates in a Souls game, sometimes there'll be like explosive barrels or something nearby, or space will be tight, and you can't make a weapon swing. You can always just do a dodge roll into them, and that will actually destroy everything. So that's the number one way to like roll through crates to get rid of them. The Vanini's Urgent Repair tool lets you instantly bring the durability of your weapon back up to full. You will very, very rarely need this item. You should hang on to it and not just use it while running around levels, because it's better to just take the time like I just did then to repair by hand. There are going to be bosses that do a lot more damage to your durability if you mess up, and that's the situation in which you might want to use that repair tool to like quickly recover. So for now, just hoard it and don't do anything with it. Oh, that was a miss. As you can see, we're nearly back to full Fable charge. just in time for the first boss, which we're approaching. Another basic principle of Souls games is if you have like a little enemy like this, just normal mobs, and they are starting to swing at you or starting to do some kind of attack, pretty much any attack you do is going to be enough to interrupt whatever they're doing. So that kind of rewards aggression. If you keep swinging, they're not able to get an attack off.
The parade puppet is blocking the entrance, and that's the only way in. So please, be careful.
There's a training dummy here if you want to practice your guarding. See there, I missed. So that's what a perfect guard looks like. You saw how there was that really nice satisfying clang sound and sparks flew away from my weapon. And that's what you have to do. You can tell how it was glowing red. If I had not perfectly guarded that, I would have taken some damage.
Hello there. Welcome to Krat, visitor. I didn't think there were any stalkers left to fight the puppets. You didn't hear? Figures. The whole organization fell apart. All that's left are wannabes and amateurs who think they can fight on their own. You ought to buy something while you're at the festival. You can't rely on yourself alone. Out here alone? You could use some help. Here's a festival gift for you. Now get yourself something useful.
So this merchant actually sells all three of the starter weapons. Since one of the trophies we're going for is to collect all of the basic weapons, you need to buy the two weapons that you didn't get at the start. So we were given the Wintry Rapier because we picked Dexterity build. So we need to go ahead and buy the Great Sword of Fate, and we need to buy the Puppet Saber. Now in addition, we're about to fight a boss puppet next, and puppets are weak to electricity. So he's selling some items that will help make this boss easier. Throwing cells are kind of like what I talked about, how thermite was a fire grenade. Throwing cells are an electricity grenade that you can lob at an enemy. So we're going to go ahead and buy those. And then the abrasives are something you can apply to your weapons so that just while you're normally swinging your weapon, if you have this abrasive active, it's a temporary buff, right? It'll last for a little while. So while that's active, you'll do electricity damage, which puppets are weak to. So the game actually is wanting us to buy one of those as well. In addition, we're going to go ahead and use our Ergo.
Out here alone?
And I'm going to buy two more. All right, and we're going to come over here. The Parade Puppet. This is the boss we're about to fight, the Parade Master. We'll repair this Stargazer. In general, when you fight a boss and die, you will respawn at the last Stargazer, the most recent one that you were at. So if we come up here, you can see the boss door to their boss arena is right here. So if we do mess up and die on this boss, the run back for this one is really painless. You'll just respawn right over here and you can try again. Alright, so that concludes this video. In the next one, we will take on the Parade Master and then make our way to Hotel Krat. See you then.